Oh, Georgia. Hello, Mike. Well, welcome. It's just on 12. Can you hear me okay, Mike?
I can hear you okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfect.
Yeah, great.
All right. We've got a couple of people rolling in, which is great. So I might just give it a few seconds, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, I managed to make it on time, Dean.
Yep, got into that meeting room.
Usually got that, always worried about that sort of corporate meeting room environment where you've got to wait for people to clear the room.
And then peer through the glass.
That's right, yeah, steamy glass.
Yeah. All right. We'll kick off. It's being recorded, so
Yep.
And thank you for picking me up yesterday on the incorrect advertised date for Wednesday. So I'm glad that you could make it today. I mean, it's always Tuesday, but I must have just clicked on that thing in LinkedIn saying Wednesday. So
sure, yeah. I
so
thought originally it was Tuesday, and then I think there was just one advertisement for it that was Wednesday, but
yeah,
we're here now.
Yeah. All right. So welcome everyone to this week's edition of Points, Lines and Polygons. Our special guest this week is Mike Gresham. So we're going to learn more about Mike over the next half an hour or so. And if you're watching live and have any questions, you can either just type them into the chat, and if we've got time at the end, we'll have some question time if people are online. So yeah, so Mike, do you want to start with giving us a very quick overview of your career, and then we'll delve into deeper.
Sure, Dean. It's how long you got? 22 years. That's I guess we could take the next 45 minutes. But that would obviously tire out the listeners. But yeah, I guess a sort of quick run through of it. Yeah, look, I have been in the in industries that use spatial technologies for the last 22 years, and for the most part of that, I have been using GIS software, but it started sort of well back, in New Zealand back in 2004. Actually, I could probably go back a little further. I'm not sure if the next question is going to be how did you get into this? Maybe I should wait until then.
Oh, well, I mean, we could delve right into it, I guess, in terms of say where you started, your studies and all those sorts of things back in New Zealand, and what focus that was, and then then we can guide that beyond there.
Yeah, sure. So I didn't go straight into GIS. I actually did an undergraduate in geology, which I thoroughly enjoyed, and then it was really off the back of a working holiday over in Western Australia, working in an exploration camp, which was fun. But I kind of made up my mind that maybe geology wasn't for me, and so I completed a graduate diploma in GIS, to sort of try and kickstart or sort of get me into the GIS field. But I actually ended up completing that when I actually went to China for 3.5 years and taught English. And that was actually where that was just an adventure that I chose to do back then. It was only supposed to be probably about 6 months originally, but then turned into 3.5 years, and also got married to a Chinese woman as well. But in terms of in terms of my GIS, I completed my GIS graduate diploma whilst I was in China And then on returning to New Zealand, I've sort of segued into the GIS world, firstly through an organisation called AgriQuality, which is really the biosecurity and sort of food safety arm of the New Zealand government. Then was working for a digital mapping company after that contract finished up, but that was with a quite a well-known sort of New Zealand company called Geographics, which I still think of quite fondly as just the founder of that. Roger Smith is he's got a a look and feel to his cartographic products, which almost I won't say can't be replicated, but it's he's got a great style which he's worked on for many years, and great product there. After I moved from Wellington to Auckland, where I worked for an engineering consultancy called Becker for about that was 4.5 years, which I think gave me a really sound sort of foundation in GIS, and really in GIS principles, and also that sort of quality assurance component. And there's a lot of project management there as well. So that I kind of think of Becker as the place where it sort of honed the skills for sort of later on in my career. But come 2011, made the decision to come to Australia, when moved over to Perth, which at the time was in very much a golden era. There was a golden period. There were a lot of the mining companies and oil and gas companies were doing very well. And when I compared it to life back in New Zealand, it was quite lucrative. It was that sort of got me over there. Really was that economic opportunity. But I spent a good 6.5 years in Perth, working for various resources companies, both chiefly Woodside and BHP on a contract. Then sort of landed actually after the downturn. So yes, I landed in Perth during the golden period, and then I think it was about September 2012, the wheels sort of came off that boom period, and I was part of a redundancy tranche from BHP, and which actually put me in very much a sort of limbo period for the best part of probably the best part of 12 months. I did have a contract role actually with a company. I think one of your previous attendees, Rinder, I think Rinder was there. I was actually working in Wellington, but that was for Frog Tech. But I had a short contract with them. So that was it was good to see Rinder on. I did watch one of the videos before. But then I sort of fell into a role with CSIRO, and I was with them for 3 years. That was that was a really interesting period. Look, I don't want to, I'm just wondering how much time we've got here, but so
no, yeah. You keep going. Yep.
I've actually finished up that contract. Was working for another mining company subsequent to CSIRO, which unfortunately I repeated the same. It was the same situation. I was made redundant there, which triggered a real look around, for work opportunities, because Perth was probably still feeling the impact of that, the downturn of 2012, and there were very few roles going. So I did look further afield, and Brisbane was, I guess my ex-wife, we'd been talking about Brisbane as an opportunity, and a role came up for a Chinese investment services company dealing in both the Sydney and Melbourne markets. So it was kind of a left field role that I had, which I, look, I enjoyed it. I found, I guess, going through my career, I've been involved in many industries, which I think just a wonderful thing about geospatial technologies, you can apply it in so many areas. Sort of going past, or finishing up, I finished up the Chinese services company. Again, our research company was, the research team was unfortunately retrenched. So I was on the lookout for another role, and I've found an opportunity at Inland Rail, which is sort of a major project that's still
trying to get off the ground.
moving along.
Yeah.
But yeah, like that was, I'd probably say so far probably the highlight of my career. That was sort of 5.5 years at Inland Rail, and working on what was an iconic project, and I'm not sure how that project will finish up and what shape or guise, but it was a great time to be on that project. But more recently, I've been working. I've been doing a bit of consultancy work for one of Australia's probably more sort of renowned consultancies, NGIS, and currently I am working at Unity Water as I've been backfilling as the GIS lead, but now I'm sort of more in a GIS support role. So that's where I'm at the moment.
Nice. And it's obviously, as you said, it's taking you, around the country and across backwards and forwards, and I guess, like you said, some of those industries, like the resource industry, certainly goes through that, boom and bust sort of cycle. And my brother works for BHP, and he has done a similar thing. He worked. He's a driller, so he's not in GIS, but he worked in Newman for iron ore, and then a whole bunch of them. So he lived like in the town, and then they went more fly in, fly out. So he ended up moving to Perth, and then just flying backwards and forwards. And then they did all these redundancies, and then he still works for BHP, but now at a different mine. It's like, yeah. So, but it does sound like, you've taken those opportunities along the way to, that underlying geospatial flavor through each of the different roles, starting with that geology side. And I certainly hear a lot of people, start in a parallel industry, geology or geography, those sorts of things, and then get exposed to some GIS, and then go, I might go down that path. And I think the benefit of that is it opens your eyes up to how different technologies can be used. And you talked about just the difference in types of roles you've done, and that I find really quite fascinating, but also useful information for certainly early career people, in that you can take GIS from a mining type implementation through to a rail implementation, through to a utility or whatever. And so I guess, how have you adapted in each of those different roles in the use of technology and the different focus in each of the different types?
Well, I guess there's always a learning curve, if you go into any one of these industries. And look, if I thought about all the industries I've been a part of, I certainly have some more favoured ones. But I think it's important that, you do have an interest in that industry. It's quite hard to, there's a big thing about using geospatial technologies in an industry, but having that understanding of, or that domain knowledge, and being able to understand what the engineers or the scientists are telling you, and really being able to apply that geospatial technology to a certain problem. You're always going to have a deeper connection if you have a little bit more domain knowledge. And I've always been, probably right across the industries, maybe not the real estate industry so much, but I still found an interest in that. But look, with just about all the industries I've had, I've really enjoyed that. Just when I've had the time to understand it a little more, because it just gets you closer to your internal clients, the customers that you're actually trying to solve these problems for. So yeah, I've really enjoyed that.
And I think it does, like, as obviously, as most people's careers grow, you move from being that technical person to more of that. And it's not that you necessarily don't do the technical stuff, but you move more into that advisory type, leading and directing, project management, those sorts of things. And I think having that exposure to different industries or different sectors certainly helps you make some really good informed decisions about how to implement those sorts of things. You mentioned about inland rail, and then that was one of your favorite sort of projects. What about that was different, or it does sound like that was probably one of the longer periods you were at an organization. Did you say 5 years or something like that? So
yeah, actually my longest, Dean. But first as a contractor, and then as permanent staff. But I guess when I think of my time at Inland Rail, it was really that sort of multidisciplinary nature of Inland Rail. I don't think I haven't really experienced the breadth of potential solutions that you could come up with, or because the project involved so many different areas. You could be focusing on environment or cultural heritage, or engineering specific work, stakeholder engagement, and it was over the scale of from Melbourne to Brisbane, and you could be working in a localized area. One of the it was partitioned up into 13 projects. You could have been working on a localized project, or you could be working on essentially the whole length of Inland Rail for in a certain area. So it was just really the scope of that project just opened up so many opportunities, and because it was so, when I started, it was still very much in the nascent period of Inland Rail. Or yes, it had been around for a while, been a lot of talk about it, and feasibility studies had been completed, but it was more that there was a federal equity injection, and that and people were starting to come into Inland Rail. But it was just, yes, you had time to sort of look around, and there was of course there was a budget to it, but you weren't totally constrained by what you could, if you could get the buy-in from the seniors around you, there were just so many opportunities there. And we're essentially just building the GIS system almost from the ground up. It was quite the system was probably in a very, I guess, immature state. When I arrived, it had probably petered along and not really had, a core team, enough team members or enough strategic direction to really, start ramping it up. And maybe it didn't have the funds either. But when I arrived, we just had room to move. And, I've seen from sort of day one to, 5.5 years down the track, we've, got 20 or so geocortex sites. We've got a few hundred FME workbenches going. It was, you just see the evolution of that.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm not sure where it's at now after 3 years after I've departed, but yeah, it's great to be a part of something that just grows and gets to a.
Yeah, and I guess as you said, it gives you that, because it's a project that's, trying to solve an issue, but has a bit of latitude as well. You have that freedom of, what software are we going to use? What, what involvement does the team have? And obviously, I think, in a lot of organizations, if GIS is given the freedom that it needs and the finances behind it, then it can grow and do a really good job. And you obviously see the reverse, when organizations know that they need GIS, and councils are probably a big example of this, but they just don't have the budget or the people. And so someone from engineering might be doing the GIS, or, someone from the asset team, and therefore it has no real focus, and therefore it just sort of meanders around, and, they pick up on that technology. But it does sound like in that inland rail, they really had that goal to make a success of it. And obviously, the end of the day, it's a big financial ticket for the government. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I think you're exactly right, Dean. That it was just that sort of runway, which we're talking years here, not months, to get something right. And yes, it is taxpayer money, but it's given just a little bit of freedom to build something, which was, of immense value to all the internal stakeholders. It was great to have that, just be able to see that system in the end, and how, just how much value people were deriving out of it. And I think that's a pretty accurate assessment of it too.
Yeah, and so obviously, well, I mean, over your career, you've talked about, quite a range of organisations you've worked for. Big mining companies, consulting companies like NGIS, government directed businesses. What sort of organisation do you find the best to work in, and potentially the least favourite to work in as well?
I think with organisations, I think there's pros and cons about all of them. Yeah, I mean, and I guess for, in a consultancy environment, there's often a variety of work. You've got, that can create, some really interesting projects come out of that. But there, there's the time pressure. There's, the meeting of deadlines and budgets, and so there's certainly pros and cons in that space. I do. Look, I really have enjoyed the project environment. So yeah, inland rail, and then after that, while I was working for NGIS, I was part of the copper string project, which is also undergoing some modifications to how that's going to be executed. But that project environment is something I really enjoy. I would say if I was to pick one that was I couldn't have a least favorite, but I must say CSIRO was that was quite a challenging environment, probably for myself, because I like the idea of developing a GIS and taking it from one place, from a certain state of maturity to another level. And I really enjoy that in any organization that I'm in. CSIRO was a difficult situation to do that, partly because you've got these very smart people who they don't need to be encumbered by standards or protocols. It's probably best that they have free license to actually go ahead and do the work they need. So in an environment which is doesn't benefit so much from structure, I'd probably there were some great things about CSIRO, and I ran amazing to work in an environment like that with so many people from different parts of the world, and just with this incredible level of expertise in their subject areas. But I found it challenging.
Yeah, and I'm probably similar in a lot of ways. I mean, I like the project environment. I like coming into a project, given a set of tasks, being able to build on it, being able to, have that input. And I'm not one who is great with bureaucracy. And it just frustrates me more than anything, and that happens, in the bigger government departments, and that's partly why I like working on the projects, because by the time even if I'm working for those sorts of organizations, by the time I get in there, that they've gone all through that bureaucracy, they've got their stakeholders, they've got the project approved to go, and then you just go for it. And that doesn't mean you don't get sucked into some of the bureaucracy, but you can choose a little bit, because you're not part of that overall structure. I think there's been a couple of times in my career where I've gone back to working full time, but it's in essence probably 20 years of my career has been project to project, and that consulting / developer type role, which and that's what I really enjoy. And some people do, some people don't. Some people like that security around a permanent role. So it varies from person to person and role to role. I always want to take, I keep getting this, I just want to almost go right back to your, it just in the back of my head, because you were talking about right at the start about your GIS graduate qualifications, and that you did that in China.
Yeah.
And was that with
a couple of papers?
was that with a Chinese institution, or was it on?
No, that was so I originally started, this is going back to 1999, I think it was. I originally started doing the graduate diploma in Massey University over in New Zealand.
Oh, okay, yep.
And I think I completed 5 of my papers through the course of 1999. And then the opportunity came up to have this adventure teaching in China, just 6 months. Oh, let's go. And then 6 months turned into
So I
12 months.
confused that because I'm thinking, were you doing that in China? Therefore, it was all in Chinese, and then it's like, oh, that would be,
That would be
obviously,
different. I think.
yeah. But I guess I guess what I was, the answer wasn't where I was going, but the thing that I really think is great about GIS is that you can, no matter where you study, the techniques for using GIS are the same here in Australia, in New Zealand, in China, or wherever, and it does get the skills and stuff that you learn can take you anywhere if you want to take it somewhere, in terms of, your career has gone, backwards and forwards across the ditch but you haven't had to relearn, yes, it might be a new industry, but the underlying techniques and, what a projection is and what the software does, they're all roughly the same, and you don't have to relearn. So.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point, Dean. And I guess with most of the users around the world, Esri kind of reigns supreme, and well, I guess certainly with open source technologies, but yeah, you've got that. Well, I'm very much an Esri user. I do enjoy my open source technologies as well, but Esri and FME, these are softwares that it's not just in the Western Hemisphere. It's these are used right across the world.
Yeah, and that's what's really great about it. And yeah, you can learn from people all around the world as well. Jump on a webinar, or one of my favorite forums is the FME forum. That's so helpful, and you've got people from around the world. You just type in your question, and within hours you're getting some good answers. And
usually
so
from Takashi.
Oh yeah, yeah, he is very active. So,
I'm not sure how active he is now. I haven't been on the FME forums for a wee while, but yeah, it was exceptional.
And I know there's one guy from the Netherlands, I think, Red Geographics. He's very active, but yeah, it's such a, in the main, a sharing and collaborative, especially that forum. But overall, I think the geospatial community is very open to, helping. It's not like we're trying to have secrets and go, all right, we can only do it down this way. And especially like if you go back really early in, certainly like in my career, where the Esri software was very proprietary. The programming languages that were coming with, ArcInfo and AML and all that were all very proprietary. And before they then went, all right, this is actually holding us back from doing the right GIS stuff. So they went, all right, well, we're going to allow people to use whatever language they want, whether that be Python or, and there is some internal stuff, obviously Avenue and those sorts of things, but it certainly has grown to become more open, I think. And yeah, those companies are always going to, they're a business and they need to grow and they need to innovate. And so I don't have anything against, commercial software versus open source. I'll use whatever clients need me to, and at the end of the day. So I guess, I've really enjoyed that, journey that you've given us. So where you are today, where do you see yourself going? Are you looking to sort of, stay in that existing environment, or are you looking to, see where it just takes you over time?
Well, I guess so the trajectory of my career, I've sort of moved into sort of more senior roles in the last few years. I've had a couple of team lead roles, as well as sort of been a principal consultant. So I do like, after 22 years, I guess I've built up this sort of knowledge base, which I want to be able to utilize that in terms of being in a role that gives a bit more strategic direction, which I guess those are the roles I'm sort of scoping out at the moment, Dean, and that's the role I'd like to be in. And I was having a good conversation with a contemporary, just last week, really, and I've always enjoyed the technologies. I love getting on ArcGIS Pro or FME or in QGIS, and being in the software, developing solutions. But he was saying that we really need to be leveraging all that experience that you've got after 20, 25, 30 years, because you've got this group of young guns just coming up, and these are the ones that are that they're born in the AI, not born in the AI period, but they're coming into the market when AI is transforming our industry. It's best to leverage your strengths as opposed to keeping up with the Joneses of the AI world, GIS world.
And I do think that's a really good point, because that those decades of experience can't be replaced by AI. And even though more and more people are using it in a day-to-day sense, whether that be in GIS, whether that be in I use it from the recruitment side of our business to refine resumes, because what used to take me a couple of hours to do a resume, I can now get, I've given it a structure, and now blip, there it's done. So from a productivity, it's really good, but you still need people like yourself who can then assess the results and go, is this result worth using? And so that, I reckon that knowledge is where it's valuable for you to be, mentoring and helping those younger people coming through, because it's like, it's not just a matter of pressing a button and hoping that the result is right. You've got to go, well, it's right because of this, or it's wrong because of that. And I think you can then guide and structure the way that organizations can work, and talk about how that technology has changed and why these things work or don't work. So yeah, I appreciate all that from you today. Thank you.
That cut out a little bit there, but I understood the sort of thread of that. It's definitely. Sorry. Yeah, for people with a bit of longer in the tooth in their careers, connecting the dots from, where things, if we're talking about ArcInfo or ArcInfo Workstation, I think that's an important cog. I mean, yes, the generation that are coming through here, yes, they're going to be extremely useful in in the years to come, but it is having that overarching sort of idea of how things have developed, how things have evolved to get to this point is I think that's important.
Nice. Well, we're certainly coming to near the end of today, so I really appreciate your time, Mike. And I guess wanted to open it up if anyone online has any questions they want to ask of Mike, or if Mike, you want to add any final comments along the way. I think it's been terrific. So if you do have a question, then just throw it out there.
Hello, am I on mute?
Hi, Peter.
Hi, Peter. Yep.
Oh yeah. So sorry, it's my first time here. I was out this morning, and I got home and was spent some time trying to do the login thing, and so I didn't quite join at 12. apologies for being a bit late, and this is my first time. I'm a little bit demeaned because I've had a bit to do with I see you posted that reference to the Iowa University for scholarships next year. So generally, with my whole GIS thing is I was a bit too early for GIS, and too late for AI. Pretty much. So my GIS thing was way back. I was in New Zealand. I was working for a catchment authority, soil conservator, in the mid 1980s, and you see this technology come along, and here I was kind of trying to get them to use it, but maybe my boss, the senior soil conservator, could see the point of it, but our little outfit was possibly too small and too Luddite to even get something really small like map info going back then. So but then my boss, John Woods, he went on to work for a Finnish-funded aid project in the Sudan, and it got over there, and of course, I think it was conflict reasons, he was sent back to Europe to sort of wait out the war. The project was put into a suspended state, and he was just sent to Esri, I think in Sweden. And here I was, sort of bashing the door, getting nowhere, and he ends up in Esri, Sweden, being looked after with nothing much to do, just taken skiing on an almost daily basis by Esri staff. So then, unfortunately, in the early 1990s, I ended up working for an even more Luddite organisation. By then, I'd got a diploma of GIS from that same Massey University. Even more Luddite. Catchment authorities had disappeared by then, replaced by regional councils, who were in themselves a bit conservative, but I was working for possibly the worst of them, with the Otago Regional Council. It's the same thing. I never got anywhere, and then we got transferred to Auckland, then we got transferred to Australia, and then I just end up in different industries. And now I was retired. I'm totally retired. I should have, in respect, perhaps kept coding or doing GIS stuff. But by the time I got to Auckland, I was all the IT jobs. You had to go through placement companies, which consisted of young girls who just didn't want to know. Even with COBOL skills from the university, from a science degree, at the turn of the century, when the Y2K bug was going, I was just considered too old into my 50s, and so I just did other things here. And however, AI's come along, and it's just too much fun, too productive, and too satisfying to leave alone. So at age 78, I've come out of retirement, and I'm making little apps. I started making apps for real estate agents, because that's a very abundant local market. There's 120 real estates in this one suburb alone, real estate agents in this one suburb alone. And
what are you making those apps in, Peter? What software?
Claude Code.
Okay.
React. I guess TypeScript.
That's a way to do it.
React. And then even my second one was all pure TypeScript, JavaScript, React, Node, and Next. However, I started off in Cursor. I spent a long time in Cursor. I was a bit slow coming to Claude Code. I wish I'd started on it months earlier, because it is so much kind of more useful. And I've recently got a free subscription to Codex, and Claude Code. And we're not going to let him do any coding, but we'll let him review what work we're doing. And oh my goodness, the reviews were so good that Claude Code could help and say nothing but, "I am humbled by the logic errors finding in our software." So the two of them together work as a good team. And at that stage, I was making the next thing was I got a brother who's a professor of inorganic chemistry, and because he does crystallography, he's got a lot of papers, like he's 2,200 papers. So I thought I'd throw them into an engine, and since there's this, my real estate stuff has got like progress plus PG vector for the semantic database, and PG GIS for the GIS mapping functions. But what I've done for my brothers is got no PG Pro GIS at all. It's just purely but it has got Neo4j, which gives you the graph rag, the relational database. So what it is a hierarchy of databases, relational database, and then vector database, semantic database, and then relationship, not a relational database, but a relationship database. And then on top of that, we've got this thing called, if you look up Pinecone as a vector database company, but just in early May, they came up with this product called Nexus, which is just embedded artifacts really that allow at compile time rather than a query time to sort out a lot of the doing, so that your token use is 1,000% less, tenfold less than what big. So this query engine from my brother's 2,200 papers is working, and it's producing results at $1 per an AI API key costs per query, but it's lacking data because he's got a license for something called CCDC, which is a whole big crystallography database over there in England, which we can't just get the data. We have to go through the licensing process. So the database will get better. And if you look at infosource.au, you can see a draft kind of like website I've got there that shows my real estate stuff I started with, and then what we worked out was a kind of really useful engine we'd made with these different databases, not the Neo4j at that stage. So we kind of abstracted that to then make models to do other things. I especially wanted one to do just farm digital twin, and also because I had a background way back in permaculture, which is like a kind of like a homesteady sort of thing. I was going to make a permaculture planner, just a small holding acreage digital twin model. But most of all, I wanted to work with fire ants because fire ants turned out to be a very big problem, and I worked out I could deal with dozens, maybe hundreds of real estate agents at $50 a month, or maybe I'll just go for one big client who's got was given $580 million, the last dollar for federal money it got, just to try to get on top of this problem. But turns out though they don't want to know. They said, oh yes, oh yeah, that's very interesting what you're doing. Now, should we ever want to get something like that, you register as a provider of services in their tender process, and and if we ever want to get exactly what you're making, we might ask there, and you can apply to be a supplier of that. So basically, they just sort of fobbed me off with that, and I haven't got back to them. But I've got so interested now that I'm just going back out to all the academics who have worked with them peripherally over the years and cultivating a whole wide range of other contacts, and I may end up doing a research degree just to pursue this, nice. or keep bashing on the door, and keep making the software. Nice.
I think what we should do, Peter, is actually get you on to your own episode. I think that you've got lots there to, but I think one of the big things that I'm taking out of that is to keep on learning.
Oh, and learning.
It sounds like an incredible stack of software stack there, Peter.
So it's a second layer.
A lot of apps there.
It's like it's interesting, really. To an extent, you're creating one query that goes through all the different layers. So it's really quite programming efficient. You're right. You mentioned that with the first. I want to get things progressed a little bit, Dean, before I kind of like try fronting anywhere with that stuff, because and I know, for example, the AI Claude Code makes it so incredibly efficient. Like this thing, this like 6-layer engine, which I made from a brother, which is working without lacks some data. And we had to go through and sort out which were his papers and why some crystals had a DOI, like an identifier, but weren't in papers and all sorts of other stuff. And Claude Code did all of this work in about 25 hours. I mean, it's 2 weeks since I've done anything significant with it, except find more things we can do. But all the work was done really quickly, and in Python with APIs, where I just really concentrated on the architecture. Now, I know it may be not perfect, but the whole point is I've gone to a lot of trouble to create governance for what I'm doing and auditability, going right back to my real estate stuff, where I was very big to be working on RESO, which is the Real Estate Standards Organization, for their data dictionary too, which is an American thing, and more particularly LIXI, LIXI.org, for which is another standard, especially for interface between entities like banks and mortgage brokers. It tends to be just a little bit downstream of real estate, but there are these standards which are built into everything we're doing, plus an awful lot of provenance, like auditability. Everything gets date stamped and time stamped, the entries going in, because a bit of more space in the database seems to be a very small cost to get an awful lot more kind of auditability into the product, the provenance. So yeah, I'm just kind of like fooling around in my retirement. My wife sees it as an expensive hobby because of the multiple subscriptions, but really I'm an incredibly small burn rate, of less than $100 a month. I was an SMEC AI, which is lost this outfit down in Melbourne that gets a lot of federal funding for running
I think for now we're gonna wrap it up, Peter, because we're sort of over time. But I think really I think it would be good to once you're at a point, we'll get you on for an episode and we'll talk about where you've come from, because it does sound like the stuff that you did way back and then stuff you're doing now. But I guess for
But I'm dealing with a bit of vaporware at the moment, like sort of planned software rather than just polished products.
Yep. No, but it's good. But I want to thank Mike for being our guest today.
And
thanks,
in common, Mike.
Thanks, Peter.
And we'll all chat again soon. So, but if you need me for anything, just reach out. Next week we're chatting with a guy by the name of Jack Green. So a sort of a mid-career sort of person. So we've had some early career people. We've had some people who had a bit of a longer career, and now sort of someone in the mid. So I look forward to that next week. And
I hope to be able to come on now at the proper time. Yeah. Now that I've got my
and thanks everyone. And
thanks for the opportunity again, Dean.
All right, no worries.
See you guys.
Thanks a lot.
Cheers. Nice to meet you, Mike.